The old house sighed around me, a familiar symphony of creaks and groans. But tonight, a new sound joined the chorus, a faint whisper, like dry leaves skittering across parched earth. I tried to ignore it, blamed it on the wind, the settling foundation, anything but the unsettling feeling that prickled the back of my neck. The TV, a hulking behemoth in the corner, hummed with static, the white noise a constant companion in the lonely hours. I'd always found a strange comfort in its flickering glow, a connection to something beyond the confines of my quiet life. Tonight, however, the comfort felt tainted, laced with a creeping unease. As the clock ticked past midnight, the whispers intensified, no longer a rustling, but a distinct murmur, like voices just beyond the threshold of hearing. My gaze drifted to the TV screen, drawn by a strange pull I couldn't explain. The static swirled and pulsed, and in its chaotic dance I saw a flicker of movement. My own reflection stared back at me, but something was wrong. My face, usually pale and drawn, was twisted into a grotesque parody. A silent scream etched onto my features, and behind me, in the distorted reflection, a shadow coalesced, dark and amorphous, its edges blurring into the static. A cold dread gripped my heart, squeezing the air from my lungs. The shadow stretched, a long, spindly finger reaching towards the glass, towards me. The static roared, drowning out the whispers, and the room plunged into darkness. Night had always been my refuge. The hush, the stillness, a balm against the relentless anxieties that gnawed at me in daylight. Insomnia was an old friend, a familiar comfort in a world that often felt too loud, too bright. My grandmother's old TV, a hulking wooden cabinet, became a constant companion in those quiet hours. The low hum of its vacuum tubes, the flickering grayscale images, offered a strange solace, a connection to a simpler past. I'd lose myself in late-night movies, old reruns, even the hypnotic snow of static when nothing else was on. There was a ritual to it. A mug of lukewarm tea, a worn blanket draped over my lap, the remote clutched in my hand like a talisman. But lately, the ritual had soured. The comfort had curdled. The static wasn't just white noise anymore. It arrived, pulsed with a hidden energy, and beneath the hiss and crackle I heard them, whispers, faint and indistinct, like lovers murmuring secrets in the dark. They promised something, these whispers, something dark, something wonderful, something terrifying. The rain hammered against the window panes, mimicking the frantic beat of my heart. Sleep had been a distant, unattainable dream. The whispers, once a subtle murmur, had become insistent, almost conversational. I'd finally drifted off, only to be jolted awake by a sharp, sibilant hiss. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the house. It was my name, slithering from the static of the silent TV. My eyes snapped open, focusing on the screen, now alive with a swirling vortex of white noise. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the drowsy haze. My hand trembled as I reached for the remote, fumbling in the dark. Then I saw it. Or rather, I saw him. The shadowy figure from the reflection, no longer a fleeting glimpse, but solid, almost three-dimensional, mounted guy. It takes you a old grave to lie, so you die. He stood just beyond the screen, a silhouette against the chaotic backdrop of static, his head cocked as if listening intently. A low chuckle, distorted and inhuman, echoed from the TV's speaker, and for the first time, I understood. He wasn't trapped in the TV. He was trying to get out. The TV stayed off for days. Days bled into nights, punctuated by the gnawing fear that sleep wouldn't come, or worse, that it would. My dreams were infested now, crawling with static and whispers. Even awake, the line between what was real and what wasn't had begun to fray. I'd catch glimpses of movement in the periphery, a flicker of shadow in a darkened doorway, a distorted reflection in the glass of a picture frame. The whispers, once confined to the late hours, followed me now, a constant murmur just beneath the surface of everyday sounds. I started checking locks, peering under beds, irrational acts born of a creeping paranoia. Yesterday, while washing dishes, I saw him. Not on the TV, but in the reflection of the kitchen window. Just for a second, a fleeting glimpse before he dissolved back into the twilight. My hand slipped, shattering a plate, the sharp crack echoing the splintering of my sanity. This wasn't just in my head. He was here, somewhere, watching, waiting. Moonlight, sharp and cold, spilled through the gap in the curtains, painting a silver stripe across the living room floor. I sat rigid on the couch, every muscle screaming for flight, yet rooted to the spot by a terror so profound it felt physical. He was there. Not a flicker, not a reflection, but real. Solid, dotting. The shadowy figure materialized from the thin air, a void in the moonlight, edges blurring like smoke. He stood silent, impossibly tall, his form radiating an aura of ancient, malevolent power. He raised a hand, long skeletal fingers beckoning, and the static whispers, always present now, intensified, swirling around me like a physical force. My breath hitched, a strangled gasp trapped in my throat. He smiled, a slow, chilling distortion of a human expression, revealing teeth like shards of obsidian. A single word, rasping and guttural, escaped his lips. My name. The sound resonated deep within my bones, a vibration that promised oblivion. My mind screamed, a white-hot panic, yet my body remained frozen, trapped in his unwavering gaze. He was no longer just watching. He was claiming. The world is dissolving, crumbling around me like burnt paper. Reality is a flickering film strip, constantly interrupted by bursts of static. The whispers, once a subtle undercurrent, now roar in my ears. A cacophony of voices promising solace, escape, oblivion, bye. They offer a release from the fear, the gnawing anxiety that has always been my shadow, my unwelcome companion. The TV, once a source of comfort, now pulses with a malevolent energy. A beacon in the disintegrating landscape of my mind. It beckons me, draws me closer, promising an end to the struggle. The constant fight against the darkness that threatens to consume me. I find myself drawn to its flickering glow, a moth to a flame, knowing even as my hand reaches out, that there will be no return. The whispers promise peace, but their undertone is laced with something cold, something hungry. The promise of escape is a lie, a trap, but I'm too tired to fight, too weary to resist the pull of the abyss. The static vanished. One moment, it was a roaring torrent, consuming everything. The next, silence. Blessed, deafening silence. The whispers ceased. The shadowy figure dissolved, and for the first time in days, I could breathe. The room swam back into focus, sharp and clear in the pale moonlight. I lay on the floor, heart hammering against my ribs. A fragile bird trapped in a cage. Hope, tentative and fragile, flickered within me. Maybe it was over. Maybe I was free. I pushed myself up, hands trembling, and looked towards the TV. The screen was dark, reflecting nothing but the empty room. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost brought me to my knees. Then a low chuckle, distorted and chilling, echoed from the silent speaker. The screen flickered back to life, the static returning with a vengeance, brighter, more intense than ever. The shadowy figure emerged, no longer a silhouette, but a grotesque parody of a human form, its features swirling within the white noise. Its hand, skeletal and impossibly long, shot out from the screen, icy fingers clamping around my wrist with a grip of steel. The whispers returned, louder, more insistent, promising pain, promising pleasure, promising the oblivion I craved and dreaded in equal measure. The icy grip tightened, pulling me forward. I clawed at the carpet, desperate for purchase, but the static surged, a tidal wave of white noise crashing over me, dragging me towards the screen. The glass felt cold against my face, then strangely pliable, yielding like water. I screamed, a silent, strangled cry lost in the roar of the static. The world twisted, contorted, the familiar shapes of my living room dissolving into a swirling vortex of light and shadow. I tumbled headfirst into the blinding whiteness, the shadowy figure's mocking laughter echoing in my ears. My body stretched, distorted, pulled like taffy, reshaped to fit the confines of this new, horrifying reality. The whispers intensified, no longer promising, but commanding, claiming. The world outside the TV, the world of sunlight and laughter and pain, receded, flickering like a dying ember, then vanished completely. I was falling, tumbling through an endless abyss of static, the shadowy figure's grinning face my only companion. He opened his arms, a grotesque parody of an embrace, and whispered, "Welcome home. I am the static. I am the whispers. The world beyond the screen, a world of vibrant colors and sharp edges, is a distant memory, a forgotten dream. Here, everything is soft, blurred, a swirling landscape of white noise. The shadowy figure, once a terrifying specter, is now my constant companion, a distorted shepherd guiding me through this strange, new existence. He smiles, a grotesque, unsettling expression, but there's no malice in it now, only a strange, unsettling familiarity. My old life, with its anxieties and fears, its fleeting moments of joy and despair, echoes faintly in the distance, barely audible above the constant hiss and crackle. The memories flicker, like ghosts in a darkened room, then fade, swallowed by the endless white noise. There's a strange peace in this oblivion, a terrifying serenity. The gnawing emptiness that once haunted me is gone, replaced by the pervasive hum of the static. I am no longer me. Not entirely. I am a part of this place, a fragment of the white noise, a whisper in the static, and in this distorted reality, I am home. Sometimes, a flicker, a fleeting glimpse of something beyond the static, a world bathed in the warm glow of sunlight. Faces swim into view, hazy and indistinct, their voices a muffled murmur beneath the insistent hiss and crackle. A hand, warm and familiar, brushes my cheek, and for a precious second I remember laughter, sunlight on my skin, the scent of rain on dry earth. I remember fear, anxiety, the crushing weight of everyday existence. And for that one brief moment I long for it. I yearn for the pain, the struggle, the messy, chaotic beauty of being alive. But the whispers intensify, a chorus of disapproval, and the shadowy figure tightens its grip, its touch no longer comforting but possessive, suffocating. The memories, those fleeting glimpses of a life lost, dissolve like smoke, swallowed by the relentless white noise. The flicker fades, the faces disappear, and the warm hand is replaced by the cold, skeletal fingers of my new companion. The static deepens, the whispers grow louder, and I understand. This isn't home. It's a prison, and the shadowy figure, my guide, my companion, is not a savior, but a jailer. He smiles, a grotesque distortion of human expression, and I see, reflected in his obsidian eyes, not my own face, but the faces of countless others trapped within the endless white noise, waiting, watching, whispering.